that are here in our sanctuary and those of you that are viewing online. My name is Susan Owen Kinsey, and I am the moderator of this congregation at this time. And I want to welcome all of you to the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Flint. We are a progressive community in which people are free to be themselves without fear. And if you'd like more information about Unitarian Universalism, please feel free to talk to one of our ministers. Their contact information is on our website at uuflint.org. And if you're a visitor today and would like to know more about us and receive our weekly email, you can find that at our website, or there's a QR code on the back of your order of service, or in the back of your seats is this nice bright colored form. We do it old school. You can fill it out and then just leave it at the back table there, and we'll start sending you information about our services and what is going on here. Also, right now, if you'll look on the back of your order of service, there's some important information, and I want to highlight two of them. Next Sunday, after coffee hour at noon, we're going to be having a discussion about this year's services. If you're interested in services and how we're doing things and like to make comments, please come and join us and give us your input. The following Sunday, which would be the 21st, we're going to have a short congregational meeting. It's short, but it's important. And for those members, please attend. We're going to be talking about quite a few financial matters, and we're going to probably be taking maybe a vote on some of them, so please attend. Now, if you would light the chalice. May the flame of this chalice be the light of a candle placed in a window to invite the wanderer to come in from the storm. On our monitors, our covenant, and again, would you join with me this time in repeating this? Recognizing the richness of diversity, the beauty and wonder of shared worship, and the transforming power, love, and service, we gather as a sacred, intentional community to freely seek knowledge and truth, to celebrate the fullness of life, and by our actions to increase goodness and justice.
Good morning and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
In this sacred gathering, may the joyful find space to praise. May the inquirers feel safe to question. May the lonely find the touch of a friend. May the singers be given a tune to sing. May the lost discover the way. And may we all experience the touch of the holy in this very hour.
Please stand if you're able and are willing. Please be seated.
After our spoken and meditation and silence, during the musical meditation, again, please feel free to light candles of joys or concerns up front or in the rear. And of course, you can always write your concern or joy in the book in the rear as well for the electronic newsletter. Let us enter into a spirit of prayer, meditation, and contemplation for these words by Maya Angelou. Shadows on the wall, noises down the hall. Life doesn't frighten me at all. Bad dogs barking loud, big ghosts in a cloud, that doesn't frighten me at all. Mean old mother goose, lions on the loose, they don't frighten me at all. Dragons breathing flame on my counterpane, that doesn't frighten me at all. I go boo, make them shoo. I make fun, way they run. I won't cry, so they fly. I just smile and they go wild. Life doesn't frighten me at all. Tough guys in a fight, all alone at night. Life doesn't frighten me at all. Panthers in the park, strangers in the dark. No, they don't frighten me at all. That new classroom where boys all pull my hair, they don't frighten me at all. Kissy little girls with hair and curls, they don't frighten me at all. Don't show me frogs and snakes and listen for my screams. If I'm afraid at all, it's only in my dreams. I have a magic charm. I keep it up my sleeve. I can walk the ocean floor and never have to breathe. Life doesn't frighten me at all. Not at all. Not at all. Life doesn't frighten me at all. Let us enjoy the silence. What is a New Year's resolution?
Something that goes in one year and out the other.
An optimist stays up until midnight to see the new year in. A pessimist stays up to make sure the old one leaves.
Hooray! Happy New Year! It's time to make old mistakes in new and different ways.
I was going to order a pizza 5 minutes before the old year ended, and when it arrived, say, I ordered that a year ago.
This New Year's, I'm going to make a resolution I can keep. No dieting all year long.
What happened to the man who shoplifted a calendar on New Year's Eve?
He got 12 months.
You can groan. Oscar Wilde said, good resolutions are simply checks that men draw on a bank where they have no account.
May all your troubles last as long as your New Year's resolutions.
My New Year's resolution list usually starts with the desire to lose between 10 and 3,000 pounds.
They say pain and tears helps one to be stronger. So, I am wishing you more tears and pain. That way you can become even stronger than you were last year. Happy New Year.
My New Year's resolution is to tolerate fools more gladly, provided this does not encourage them to take up more of my time.
My grandparents had resolutions like donating more time and money to charities. I've decided to make my own coffee once a week.
Charlie Brown said, you know how I always dread the whole year? Well, this year, I'm going to dread it just one day at a time.
My New Year's resolution is to stop hanging out with people who ask me about my New Year's resolutions.
No need for resolutions to get in shape this year. Round is a shape. And you're perfectly it. Happy New Year.
New Year's Day is every person's birthday.
Charles Dickens said, a new heart for a new year. Always.
with a face full of mud. Yes, I'm fumbling and I know my car won't start. Yes, I'm stumbling and I know I play a bad guitar. Give me a little drink of your loving cup. Just one drink and I fall down drunk. I'm the man who walks the hillside in the sweet summer sun. I'm the man that brings you roses when you ain't got none. Well, I can run and jump and fish, but I won't fight you if you want to push and pull with me. and I fall down drunk. I feel so humble with you tonight, just sitting in front of the fire. See your face dancing in the flame, feel your mouth kissing me again. What a beautiful buzz, what a beautiful buzz, what a beautiful buzz, what a beautiful buzz. Oh, what a beautiful buzz, what a beautiful buzz. Yes, I am nitty gritty and my shirt's all torn, but I would love to spill the beans with you till dawn. Give me a little drink of your loving cup, just one drink and I fall down drunk.
20 years after his death, he is now one of the most revered humans to have ever walked our planet. But in 1962, young Nelson Mandela was frantically hiding his pistol and secret notebook before the police arrested him. The whites of South Africa had been searching for him for 17 months, and they wanted to execute him. His crime was daring to fight back against their murderous, government-sanctioned racism. Daring to fight for the right to vote and for the rule of law. On the night Mandela was captured, he was returning to Johannesburg from Durban after a secret meeting with expert saboteurs who would blow up unoccupied factories, power stations, and railroads, and do it carefully without killing anyone. Mandela was a well-known and respected lawyer, not an impulsive, violent man, and he and his fellow freedom fighters had avoided violence for nearly 40 years. But now, it seemed impossible that they would ever be treated as human beings unless they found a way, some way, to show their power. 75% of the people of South Africa were black, but the white people ruled with a fist of pure bigotry, empowered by a wealth that they extracted from a land that was not theirs to begin with. Nelson and his friend took turns driving on that long trip back to Johannesburg. He later wrote that as they left the blue-black waters of the Indian Ocean behind them, they moved through hills that offered majestic views of the surrounding valleys. He said he reveled in the beauty of the Natal countryside that remained green even in the winter. When you read his own account of his capture, you realize how very much he loved the beauty of Africa and how much he wanted to live in it as a free man. Then, 3 cars with blinding headlights, all filled with white men, forced Mandela's car off the road. He thought of running, but he knew that they would love to shoot him down. So he hid his secret notebook and his pistol in the upholstery of his friend's car and surrendered. And so began the 27 years of his imprisonment. 27 years behind bars for the crime of fighting for the rights of a people who only wanted to be treated as human beings. Today, all across America, at this very hour, preachers are preaching sermons giving advice on how to face the new year and be happy. It seems to come with a minister's job, and my humble attempt includes learning lessons from the life of Nelson Mandela. But you know the sermons I'm talking about. They often contain 5 things you should do to be happier in the new year. They always enumerate the ways, and 5 is usually the number of the things you are supposed to do. But 5 is a lot to remember, let alone do, even if they might bring you happiness. But this temptation to try to find a systematic, step-by-step approach to getting more happiness, taking off from the official starting point of January 1 of each year, is very hard to resist. Why? Because people who you don't even know keep telling you at the grocery store to have a happy new year. To which some natural, honest responses that we never say might be, "Ha, fat chance." Or, "Oh yeah, right, sure." Or if you have time, "Sure, I'd love to have a happy new year. Could you help me out with that? And please, not with some 5-step program. My ability to focus is not what it used to be." Well, the prefix "una" means one. And as Unitarian Universalists, a lot of us naturally crave one singular, all-encompassing solution to life's biggest problems. The treasured key to happiness. And that is how the life of Nelson Mandela fits into this New Year service. His story, in essence, is about one thing: conquering his own fears and helping others conquer theirs. If you study fear and its twin offsprings, anger and hatred, you will find that mental health experts agree unreasoned fear is a major cause of human unhappiness. Much of human self-made misery is caused by fear, gone wild, untamed. For example, 3 years ago, as of yesterday, January 6th, thousands of fear-filled people attacked the capital of our country. In their minds, they were filled with righteous anger and justified hate. Actually, they were afraid of a shadow created by a lie about a stolen election, and that made them angry and filled with hate. They were not brave hearts out to find justice. They were just foolishly, unnecessarily afraid, but unwilling to see and admit it. But all of us sometimes love to deny it when we are afraid. We also often truly believe our anger is 100% warranted, useful, inescapable, pure as the driven snow, and even healthy. But even a brief survey of the research on human fears and the resulting feelings of anger and hate show that mental health experts agree people will be happier and more successful if, when they are angry, they understand that, first of all, they are afraid. To do that, we have to turn our attention to what is happening in our heads and be honest with ourselves. And oh, the pain, that pesky self-honesty. As hard as it may be at times, to be honest with someone else is much harder than, much easier than telling yourself the truth. The wisdom of many world religions, modern psychology, and behavioral sciences lead me to believe that the single most important thing we can do to be happier in 2024 is to look at our own anger. Then we can have a talk with ourselves about what we are afraid of. So the next time you are really mad, go to the root of your feelings. Name the fear. Name what you might lose. It is a mental adventure that so very few people take. But awareness of our fears and the fears of others not only makes us happier, because the fears are often overblown, but also better able to take on life's greatest challenges. Faced with his own execution by hanging, or at least a life in prison, and the tragic plight of his own people, Mandela had challenges we can never know. So his life became a laboratory in which he was forced to study the effects of fear and the destructive anger it creates. It's a good story to contemplate at the beginning of a new year. A new year that is bound to frequently make us afraid and angry. Thousands gathered daily outside the Pretoria so-called Palace of Justice, where Mandela and 10 others were put on trial. The plight of black South Africans at this time is more than most of us can imagine. 80% of the land was reserved for whites, and blacks had to get permits to even travel into areas reserved for the whites. It was called apartness, or as it is better known in the Dutch language, apartheid. The best jobs by law were reserved for whites, who enjoyed the highest standard of living in the world, while Africans lived in poverty and misery. Nelson Mandela had every reason to be enraged, vengeful. Most humans would have been. But at the start of his trial, they let him make a statement, and he stood and spoke calmly with careful reasoning. He spoke with passion too, and for over 3 hours. It was a speech carefully designed to calm unfounded fears, but also to show that the court trying them was illegitimate. He told them he knew they feared the liberation movement because they mistakenly thought it would be the end of democracy in South Africa. South African whites were sure democracy would end immediately if blacks were given the vote. It is a perfect example of a frightened people projecting their own unwillingness to give rights to others and projecting that into the minds of other people who have no such ideas. The January 6th insurrectionists were likewise truly convinced that other people had fixed the election. They felt that way because that's what they would have done given half the chance. Such unrecognized, irrational fear is hard to contain, and when it gets away, it can be dangerous. Trying to allay such irrational fear, Mandela said to the judge, "I have dedicated myself to this struggle of the African people. I have fought against white domination, and I have fought against black domination. I have cherished the idea of a democratic and free society in which all persons will live together in harmony and with equal opportunities. It is an idea for which I hope to live for. But my Lord, If it needs be, it is an idea for which I'm prepared to die. His 3-hour speech is considered one of the most powerful and influential speeches in history. And Mandela's vow that he was prepared to die was no empty boast. His defense team had told him to prepare for the worst. So when the judge sentenced all of them to life in prison instead of death by hanging, Mandela saw it as a great victory for the cause of freedom. And he knew, standing there, he knew that he had some kind of power, even though he stood there as a prisoner, often in handcuffs. He had dared the judge to hang him, and it worked. Was he fearless? Not at all. Nelson Mandela frequently admitted he was often afraid and very angry. But he realized his power was in his ability to know and conquer his fear and to help others do the same thing. He wrote, "During the proceedings, the magistrate was diffident and uneasy and would not look at me directly. The other attorneys also seemed embarrassed, and at the moment, I had something of a revelation. These men were not only uncomfortable because I was a colleague brought low, but because I was the symbol of justice in the court of the oppressor. I was the representative of the great ideals of freedom, fairness, and democracy in a society that dishonored those virtues. I realized then and there that I could carry on the fight even within the fortress of my enemy." In short, he saw and understood the fears of the people in power. They were afraid because he had the moral high ground for which he was prepared to die. And so they could not even look him in the eye. The celebrated author and philosopher historian Umberto Eco noted that people should fear prophets who are prepared to die for the truth. For as a rule, they make many others die with them, often before them, and at times instead of them. That's probably very true. But Mandela did not want people to fear him or to die with him, and he would take a very different path. Now, I should definitely pause here and point out that this service is not about being fearless in the common sense of the word, in which someone is said to have no fear at all. I even carefully worded the title, Fear Less in 2024, which has nothing to do with being totally free of fear. I assume such a thing is impossible, and any person who thinks they are fearless is probably dangerous to themselves and to others. So instead, we, like Mandela, only on a much smaller scale, should examine our fears in this new year. As the Swiss psychologist Carl Jung famously said, "Where your fear is, there is your task." Our fears point to exactly where we need to go next to evolve and expand our lives. And yes, to have a happy new year. Mandela was 44 years old when he was sentenced, and he spent the first 18 years of his imprisonment on the notorious Robben Island. It was an iron fist, hellish outpost where political prisoners faced hard labor, breaking lime in the quarry. All the guards were white and demanded the prisoners call them boss. At first they sang to keep their spirits up, so the guards ordered them not to sing. They were denied reading material and the opportunity to play sports, and charges against the prisoners were frequently trumped up by the wardens. Punishments often ensued: solitary confinement for no reason, and withholding the food that was nearly inedible anyway. Once every 6 months, Mandela was allowed one visitor and to send and receive one letter. But often the authorities would withhold the mail out of spite. At times he felt a crushing loneliness, and only visits from his wife Winnie and the letters he smuggled out to keep the freedom movement going made life bearable. He was indeed carrying on the fight, even from within the fortress of the enemy. There is not enough time for me to describe all of the outrageous indignities suffered by Mandela and his fellow prisoners. But there is time to describe how he survived and carried on the fight, because it was just one thing: victory over his fear and the fear of others. Prison, he later wrote, is designed to break one's spirit and destroy one's resolve. To do this, the authorities attempt to demolish every initiative, negate all signs of individuality, all with the idea of stamping out that spark that makes each of us human. He kept the spark that made him human by believing, as he said, that deep down in every human heart there is mercy and generosity. No one is born hating another person, he said, because of the color of their skin or their background or religion. If people can learn to hate, they can be taught to love. This was the spark that allowed him to treat his captors with respect that we might say they don't deserve. He quickly learned their language, Afrikaans, and some of the white administrators found his charm and iron will irresistible. Almost from his arrival, he assumed a kind of command. The first time his lawyer visited him, Mandela greeted him and then introduced his 8 guards by their full names, and calling them, to their amazement, my guard of honor. As the many years passed, the prison authorities began treating him as a prison elder statesman. It is likely that many of you remember hearing down through the years, in the late 60s, the 70s, and the 80s, the words, "Free Mandela." The atrocities committed by South Africa's apartheid policies were well known to the rest of the world. Slowly, the government in South Africa realized that Nelson Mandela had more political power sitting in his prison cell than he would have if he were free. They arranged secret talks with him and wondered if this reasonable, polite, now 70-year-old man could help them reduce the pressure of the world that the world was putting on them to change. The irony of the situation just about takes your breath away. The man they had feared and hated and mistreated and locked away they hoped forever, they now hoped that man might save them from the crushing boycotts and violent black nationalists who wanted only to turn the tables on the whites. Mandela was finally released in 1990, and he said, "As I walked out the door toward the gate that would lead to my freedom. I knew if I didn't leave my bitterness and any hatred behind, I'd still be in prison. He did leave it behind, in what might seem to most of us to be a superhuman feat. He quickly made it known that he was a man without bitterness, choosing to respond to hatred and bigotry with forgiveness. Many thought he was absurdly lenient towards the whites, who they thought should be severely punished. Instead, he created the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. The commission could grant amnesty from prosecution to perpetrators if they confessed their crimes against human rights. Mandela explained to his critics, he explained that forgiveness liberates the soul. It removes fear. That's why it's such a powerful weapon. The road that led to the final end of apartheid was long, but it happened as more and more Afrikaners stopped fearing black people. And it sounds like something from a fantasy novel, but 4 years after he was released from prison, Nelson Mandela was elected president of South Africa. You have to wonder, how often does a person who spent nearly 30 years in prison get elected president of the country that imprisoned him and actually wanted to hang him? I'm guessing not very often. As I mentioned at the very beginning of this odd How to Have a Happy New Year advice sermon, Mandela is one of the most revered humans to have walked our planet. And in reading about him, I'm very happy to report that I never found a place where he talked about a 5-point plan to rescue humanity from their fears. He focused on one thing, and it is captured perfectly in Mandela's favorite poem that he often recited to his fellow prisoners on Robben Island. It is entitled Invictus. And of course, that's the title of the movie about Mandela, in which Morgan Freeman stars, a great movie. Invictus was written by William Ernest Henley. And some think of it as a keep a stiff upper lip and be strong advice poem. I don't think so. I'm sure it's about how facing and understanding fear, your own and others, can give you an unconquerable soul. The final 2 stanzas read, "Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade. And yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how strait the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul." May we all fear less in 2024.
A fire exists by burning. The UUCF exists through the love and compassion of its members, but a fire cannot burn without fuel. And UUCF cannot exist without your energy, your imagination, creativity, and financial support. That's what fuels UUCF and helps us nurture a welcoming, inclusive, and liberal religious community. Without your generous support, our bright beacon would go out. And that's why each and every gift of time, treasure, is gratefully accepted. And please consider making a gift to UCF at this time by placing a gift in the basket at the back there. You can also go online, of course, to uuflint.org. We have a website. Or you can send a check to our office. So thank you all for your generosity in the past and your generosity coming forward. Thank you.
Our closing words are those of President John Adams. My mother always said that I never delighted enough in the mundane. But now I find that I look at even the smallest thing, a small white flower in the field. And when I do, my imagination begins to roam the Milky Way. Rejoice evermore. Rejoice evermore. Rejoice evermore. I wish that had always been in my heart and on my tongue. And let us extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
I like life, life likes me, life and I fairly fully agree. Life is fine, life is good, especially mine, which is just as it should be. I like pouring the wine, and why not? Life's a pleasure that I deny not. I like life here and now. Life and I made a mutual vow. Till I die, life and I will both try to be better somehow. And if life were a woman, she would be my wife. Why? Because I like life. I like life, life likes me. I make life a perpetual spree. Eating food, drinking wine, thinking who'd like the privilege to dine me. I like drinking the drink I'm drinking. I like thinking the thoughts I'm thinking. I like songs, I like dance, I hear music and I'm in a trance. Tra-la-la, pa-pa, chances are we shall get up and prance. Where there's music and laughter, happiness is rife. Why? Because I like life.